Well, most of us that's watching YouTube videos know that we should be preparing for war. NATO has said prepare for war. Get ready. It's coming. 36 hours. You need to be supplied for 36 hours, where you can hunker down and take care of yourself. The channels are missing the part where the guy said in the next 20 years. Now, I've told you, he's not going to come out and say, we're going to go to war tomorrow, we're going to go to war next Friday. We will not have a warning when this goes off. Do I think it will immediately go nuclear? No, I don't. I think that'll take time and progress to it eventually. If all countries get involved, yes, it probably will. But what does that mean for you and me? That we need to be ready for war? Nothing, because we should already be ready for war. We should already be prepped up. We should already be able to, if something does happen, we should be able to sit back and be, all right, what do we need to do here? What do we need to do there? We're in a position where we don't have to panic, because panicking, there's never a time to panic no matter what. Now, for someone who's just getting into prepping, it's going to cost you more money to get the stuff that you need, right? Some stuff is probably going to get to the point where it's not available again. Now, I'm not telling you it's too late to prep, but it is too late to prep at an affordable price, and everything where you need it, you can go buy it. Things are getting more and more expensive every day. We know that. Let's talk about, if we do go to war, what will happen. More than likely, we will get no warning. We've discussed this before. You'll be, if I've always said, if, let's say somebody invaded the United States, right? Let's say they invaded New York and California. Other states in the United States, like the Midwest, the South, the Southwest, all them, they would be probably told, go on about your day as normal. Everything's fine. We're handling this up here. Y'all go about your day as normal. That's what we would probably hear from the government. Now, what should you do if we do get invaded? You should have a plan in place. You should already know what to do. You should already have everybody that's in your group or your family, or however you're going to deal with this when it happens, should already know the plan. We're having time now where you can maybe rehearse your plan. I've told you before, one thing you need to make sure you have is physical maps. Everybody thinks these phones and everything, I'm guilty of it. You need to look something up, look on your phone, right? You need to measure something. Nowadays, you can just measure it on your phone if you're looking at like topo maps and stuff. But you need to be able to read a map and be able to use a real compass. Get you a map, get you a compass. Learn how to read it, topographic maps, compass. Get you a decent one. I'm not telling you go out and spend $50 to $100. Get you one that works. They're out there for $5 and on up. You can get a pretty decent compass. A map, you might want to make sure that it is where if it gets wet, it won't damage the map. I can't think of the word. The stuff that goes on it, laminated. Make sure it's laminated map, things like that. Of course, we all know you need food, water, shelter, fire protection, right? Now, don't start panicking because all these other channels, their headlines are huge, right? That, hey, NATO's saying we're going to go to war, but they leave out the part kind of where he says in the next 20 years. Now, I've told you, he's not going to come out and say we're going to go to war Monday or Friday, right? But they're preparing us, right? That way, when it does happen, people won't be in such a shock, right? You got to think this year, we have the election coming up, which is going to get really crazy. I think it will, because let's just say Trump loses again. What's going to happen? We've discussed it. The January 6th insurrection, is it going to be worse, or is it just are we even going to have an election this year? We've got people saying that we won't even have an election. I don't know. But I feel personally that if something as big, major is going to happen, it will happen before the election. I really do. Could we be invaded? I don't see us being invaded, but what I do see is terror groups, insurrectionists, real ones. I see them maybe doing something in the country, right? Maybe, we all know there's sleeper cells here. They've been here. A lot of people's pitching a fit about the border. What they're doing. These groups have already been here. They're just adding to their numbers now. It's not nothing new. But yes, the border needs to be fixed. You got Texas down there putting their foot down. Let's see how that goes. Texas could honestly just be like, hey, we got our own oil down here. You know, we don't need the federal government's help. We can pull back. You know, you might draw back into a thing like, you know, back in the Civil War days where they're like, we're leaving the Union. Who knows? This year is going to be crazy. It's going to be bumpy. And we more than likely will be at war with someone. Like I've said before, this war here that we're going into and it's going on now, we are at war. We are firing missiles, drones, all this stuff at other countries. But yet they're not calling it war. They're not even calling it a police action. Some of you may be old enough. I had an uncle who fought in Vietnam. I had an uncle who fought in Korea and died. You know, honestly, they considered them police actions. You know, we're just going over trying to help these people. They're not even calling that now. But nowadays they've changed the definition of everything, right? We've talked about that. How nothing is what it used to be. Inflation numbers have switched. The recession, right? The difference in a recession now and a couple of years ago, now we're not in a recession. There is no middle class. We are the working poor. Plain and simple. You're either rich, poor, or destitute. No middle class anymore. And the poor is the working poor. Get back on point here. NATO, you know, I always grew up, my grandpa telling me, you know, that blue hat army, you know, they may wind up invading us. That's what we heard a lot of years too, that, hey, NATO's going to come in and take over our country. Well, now they've got their hands full over here. They got their hands full over here and over here and over here. Something is going to brew up out of this. You can't have all these pots boiling without something boiling over. You know, it's a simple term. You know, you got so many pots, or most people say irons in the stove, but you got so many pots boiling, right? You can't keep each one simmering, right? One of them's going to boil over eventually. Which one is it? Is it Ukraine? Is it the Middle East? Is it Taiwan? I mean, something's going to boil over here eventually. I don't know which one it is, but I do think this year is going to be crazy. It's going to be probably worse than last year. We got the election. We're having a big winter. I've always told you too, if you're in the South here around me in Alabama, we have about 10 to 14 days of winter, and people forget that. That's all we have over, what is it, 90 days of winter technically. We have about 10 or 14 days of cold weather like we're having now. And when it comes, everybody's just shocked. Like, oh God, it's so bad. It happens every year. It happens every year. We don't get cold and stay cold. We get cold, stay cold for a couple of days, and then tomorrow and the next days, we're going to be back up in the 60s. So, you know, this is why you need to be prepared for things like that, like the weather. But with NATO coming out and saying that, you got to remember, he said in the next 20 years, you know. So it shouldn't panic you. It shouldn't worry you, because you should already be prepared for whatever comes. You cannot be prepared for everything. Don't get me wrong there. But you should be in a position where you can set back if something does happen. If we break off into a war, you know, where you've got it under control. The main thing is don't panic. Don't start panicking. Have a plan. Put your plan in action. That's the best that you can do. One thing that's going to happen now, if we start ramping up to a war and more people start prepping, they're going to start raising the prices up, right? You got to remember that. But he said 36 hours, right? 36 hours you should have a radio, excuse me, water, and stuff like that for 36 hours. What the heck good's 36 hours? Is the government going to come back 36 hours later and say, okay, we're back? No. Be able to support yourself and your group with your preps, honestly, for a year or more, but at bare minimum, 30 to 90 days. 30 to 90 days is what you need to be looking at. Let me know your thoughts on this. The video's running kind of long, and I'm sorry about that. Stay safe. Keep your head on a swivel. Be aware of your surroundings at all times. Protect yourself and your family at all times. At that moment, you're the only person that can do it. Guys, don't panic over all these videos that's coming out, you know, about NATO. Because plain and simple, we will get no warning. You should already be prepared. If you're just now starting to get into being prepared, step it up a little bit. You know, don't go full-blown panic mode, but start adding back to, you know, getting you some preps up. Stay safe. Hey, it's tax season. Take some of that refund and get you some preps. Stay safe, y'all.